auction a week ago.
So am I close when I say that over 4 years of these auctions, the government looks to realize about $8 billion?
That's their projection, yeah.
Okay, so you mentioned California and Quebec, and certainly that's come up as well during the PC leadership discussions and debate. Tell our viewers a little bit about the relationship between Ontario, Quebec, and California in this cap and trade carbon pricing world.
Sure, it actually goes back a while ago to around 2008 when there was more discussion across jurisdictions about what to do to mitigate climate change, and there was discussion then about setting up a cap and trade system under this umbrella organization called the Western Climate Initiative. And at that point everyone was gearing towards putting this system in place. 2008, 2009 happened, the economy didn't do so well. Ontario stopped paying attention to that for a while, but California, Quebec, and other jurisdictions continued to move forward in implementing a cap and trade system. So we saw California get up and running, Quebec get up and running. They've been doing their systems now for 5 to 6 years. And it wasn't until the Wynne government got their majority that they said, we're getting back into this, and they came out with their climate change strategy. So it was always in the background, and Ontario's never really left the WCI. They've always stayed involved. But this was an ability to spread out and really strengthen the market by including other jurisdictions. And what it allows is for prices to stay down, for the cost of carbon to stay down. If Ontario kept its own market, the price per ton of carbon would be $100 within 3 years. But because we have options and more fluidity in the market and accessing credits from other jurisdictions, that will keep the price lower for industry and consumers in the long run.
Okay, great. So provinces in Canada are able to create their own pricing on carbon, and I think you mentioned Quebec and Ontario, who are doing a similar thing.
Yep.
I think British Columbia went the route of a straight carbon tax.
Yes.
And very recently in the media, we're seeing reports out of Saskatchewan that says that province isn't going to do anything.
Right.
Now, in the People's Guarantee, the PC platform that came out last November, the PC party said, we're going to abandon that cap and trade system that the Ontario government has put in place, which you just described, and we're just going to do the federal way.
Right.
So while provinces are able to do their individual thing, the federal government's kind of lurking there. And is it right to say that provinces that don't implement their own carbon pricing scheme, that the feds will step in and do it for them?
Yes, that's exactly what they're going to do. So this really started, the rejigged or the reinvigorated approach to climate change started in 2015, and really off the heels of the Paris Agreement, which was the global agreement on mitigating climate change, and really set the tone for the amount of action and intent that the federal government was going to have to do this. And so what came out that following year was the development of the Pan-Canadian Framework on Climate Change, with almost all provinces signing on, except at the time for, I believe, Manitoba and Saskatchewan. And a big component of that plan was to establish a carbon price across the country. As you mentioned, though, some jurisdictions during time of relative inaction on climate change on the federal level went ahead and set their own carbon price in their own system. PC was actually first out the gate with their tax in 2008. So I think rightly so, the federal government said we can't just make you get rid of all your systems. And it makes a lot of sense too, because every jurisdiction should have an ability to choose the right system for them, because a carbon tax may work better in one jurisdiction, cap and trade may work in another, depending on the makeup of your economy. So to fill in the gaps, I guess, the federal government said, if you don't come up with your own plan, whether it's a carbon tax or cap and trade, we'll bring forth this federal backstop, as they're calling it, and essentially impose a carbon tax into your jurisdiction.